Welcome to Life Habit Week 3. Let's get started. Make each meal a protein plus a carbohydrate. So how are we going to do this? How much protein and how much carbohydrate? Well, we're going to eat at least 10 grams of protein every time we eat. And our carbohydrate intake is going to stay under 30 grams. As far as fat goes, we're going to address that in future weeks, so don't worry about that right now. Why eat this way? Well, for many reasons. Carbohydrates are digested slower when we combine protein with them, and the slower the better. It also stabilizes our blood sugar levels, which stabilizes mood and energy. Protein is needed to burn fat and feed muscle, and we need carbohydrates for many functions, including fat burning. However, let me give you the secret here. Too many carbohydrates at one sitting causes the fat storage process to begin. So it's not necessarily eating carbohydrates that makes us fat. It's how much we eat at one sitting. I really want you to understand that. Carbohydrates are designed to give us energy. If we eat more at one sitting than what we actually need for energy in that moment, then our bodies store it for later as body fat. So body fat is stored up energy that didn't get used. 30 grams of carbohydrate is an amount that your body can use for daily energy needs without going into surplus. So really remember that 30 grams of carbohydrate is totally fine every time we eat. The exception to this is after vigorous exercise, our carbohydrate needs increase slightly to about 45 grams. So an example of this would be if someone were to drink a post-workout recovery shake of Advocare. And that shake is designed to replenish carbohydrate, and so those carbohydrate needs do go up that meal that we eat immediately after a workout. So that's an exception to the rule. Okay, so what's protein? We just really need to identify foods that have protein in it. What foods contain larger amounts of protein? We're looking at meat, poultry, fish, eggs, cottage cheese, and protein powders like Muscle Gain. One of my absolute favorite products of Advocare is Muscle Gain. It's a pure protein powder, so I can add it to any meal that I need more protein. Now, little highlight here, peanut butter and cheese are fats. They are not protein. So when we sit down to eat a meal and we're getting our protein quota, we're not looking at peanut butter and cheese to fulfill that need. Okay, so carbohydrates, on the contrary, what are those? What foods contain larger amounts of carbohydrates? A lot. Bread, bagels, rolls, croutons, cereal, oatmeal, tortillas, crackers, rice, all flour products, all fruit and fruit products, yogurt and milk, corn, peas, squash, potatoes, and yams, beans, lentils, candies, sweets, pastries, alcohol, and then all sauces and dressings. You want to check those for the sugar content on the back. Both carbohydrate and protein foods. Some foods are both carbohydrate and protein all packaged in one. So when we sit down to eat a meal, we might be eating the perfect balance. And so when we look at this, an example of foods with both carbohydrate and protein is yogurt, milk, and soy milk. Have both carbohydrate and protein in them. However, when you look at milk and yogurt, you might look at the protein content because very rarely will it have over 10 grams of protein. It'll be under 10 grams, so that still wouldn't be adequate in the protein side, okay? But just know that there's a little bit of protein in there. And then soy foods, and then Advocare bars. Nearly every single bar that Advocare has over 10 grams of protein, so you'll be good there. And then Advocare shakes also have protein and carbohydrates, so the shakes are perfectly balanced, a 1-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein. That 1-to-1 ratio is very helpful with getting results. Okay, so Advocare products alone, let me show you this. I want you to see where they fall into what category. Well, mainly carbohydrate products are Spark, Cappuccino, V16 has very, very, very little carbohydrate, and Muscle Fuel has a tiny bit. Now, mainly protein is the Muscle Gain powder. That's why I love it, because I can use it to add on to any carbohydrate I'm eating to make sure I get enough protein for my meal. Then the combination of carbohydrate and protein all in one are the bars, the meal replacement shakes, and the post-workout recovery shake. So when you eat those, you're getting that complete meal perfectly together. So determining your serving size. You might be saying, oh, I don't even know what 10 grams looks like. What does that look like? So I want to show you here. That list of carbohydrates you see, approximately 15 grams is the palm size of your hand in a serving or a portion size. So one slice of bread, a third of a bagel, half of an English muffin, half of a tortilla, half a cup of rice, half a banana, 3/4 cups of berries, 1 tablespoon of regular jam, 1 small piece of fruit, or 1 cup of soy milk. That's all about 15 grams. of carbohydrate. So when you look at the palm of your hand, just know that that's about 15. Okay, when you sit down to a meal, that's about how much carbohydrate is going to get you in a perfect range. Protein is about half the size of your palm, is going to be 10 grams. So if you were to eat a chicken breast and it was about the size of the palm of your hand, then you'd be eating about 20 grams of protein, which would be great because you're trying to get 10 or more grams of protein in every single meal. The key to this step is going to be to read your food labels, okay? So you look here at the meal replacement shake and this food label. We pulled this up because I wanted to show you what I'd be looking at here. When you look at the total carbohydrate and it says 24 grams, I want to ask you, does this fall within the rule of eating 30 grams or less of carbohydrate? And the answer is yes, because it's under 30 grams of carbohydrate, so this food qualifies. And then protein down there on the bottom is 24 grams. That means it also fits the life habit that we're in right now because it's over 10 grams of protein. Okay, so here's an example. I love the fruit and fiber bar. In fact, right before I recorded this, this is the meal that I ate. A fruit and fiber bar has 130 calories. The total carbohydrates are 19 grams, okay? And then the protein is 8 grams. So when I eat a fruit and fiber bar as a meal, or as one of my 5 meals, I'm looking at my carbohydrate as 19 grams, and I'm fine there because it's under 30 grams. But my protein is 8 grams. That means I should add a little bit more protein to get over my 10. So what I do is I add a serving of Muscle Gain. And you keep hearing me say this because it is definitely a staple in our household for all of us, my kids as well as my husband. And that word Muscle Gain is a little deceiving, by the way, because it has a leaning effect. It's protein that gets into your system, gets digested quickly. So when you look at Muscle Gain, what you're looking at, total carbohydrate is 4 grams. So it's really very minimal on the carbohydrates, but the protein is 25 grams. So as a total, if you pull them up and you add them together, because I eat them in the same meal, that is 23 grams of carbohydrates altogether and 33 grams of protein. So this is a meal that qualifies for my habit. Okay, how are we going to make this happen? Okay, again, we're not going to count vegetables in the carbohydrate equation, okay? Because vegetables are carbohydrates, and many of you know that, but we're not going to count that because we're not going to get that complicated. So vegetables are considered free foods all around. Number 2, Advocare drinks like Spark and Cappuccino, we're not going to count those into your 30 grams of carbohydrate budget either if they're consumed separate from your meal. So if you're just squeezing a Spark in mid-afternoon or a Cappuccino, don't worry about it. You're not counting that, okay? Because it's under the 30 grams of carbohydrate, so it's fine. Number 3, read your food labels. That's how you're really going to educate yourself on this. Number 4, plan your meals ahead of time, for sure, especially with protein. You want to make sure you plan for protein, and that would be the key phrase that I would say is a take-home message right now for this life habit is plan your protein. Number 5, when in doubt, eat a bar or a shake. Stock them in your car, your office desk, your purse. We have them absolutely everywhere. My kids eat them, I eat them, my husband eats them, and it's because we can eat a perfectly balanced meal anytime that we need to eat a meal. Number 6, at restaurants, we want to take our sandwiches at restaurants and eat them open face with no other carbohydrate choice, okay? And then for salads, make adjustments to the added carbohydrates in the form of croutons, breadsticks, tortilla strips, etc. I usually just ask for that stuff, to be taken off because I don't want to mess with it. And usually salads at restaurants taste great with that anyway. And then for Mexican food, that can be a little bit of a challenge. You have to really think this one through. There's the fajitas with the corn tortillas are your best option. And then 1 corn tortilla plus 1/4 a cup of beans equals your carbohydrate limit. And this would mean skipping the chips. So at a Mexican restaurant, we have to think a little bit more, at any restaurant really. And I look at carbohydrates kind of like a budget. And I choose the ones I like the most, and that's what I eat at my meal. Okay, this is a group assignment. If you're with a group right now, or maybe you're by yourself, I would love for you to grab 5 to 10 carbohydrate food items that you have within your reach in your kitchen or wherever you're at, and determine the serving size that a person can eat and still consume 30 grams of carbohydrate or less. So you're going to go to that food label and you're going to look at the total carbohydrates, and you're going to see how much you could eat of that food and still stay under the 30 grams. Okay, so here's a little hint. You're going to want to read the serving size at the top of the label, and then read the grams of total carbohydrate at the bottom. Okay, so this is how you're going to get your point. When you have 0 to 30 grams of carbohydrates at each meal, so remember, you might have a meal that has no carbohydrates, and that's fine. but you have to get at least 10 grams of protein every time you eat to get your point. Okay, so there's your point. Each day that you eat at least 10 grams of protein in each meal, you're going to get a point. Now you forfeit your point and you don't give yourself a point if you eat less than 10 grams of protein in any one meal. So you didn't eat enough protein at a meal, you don't get a point. If you eat more than 30 grams of carbohydrate at any one meal and you overdid it on the carbohydrate, then you don't get a point either. Okay, how are you guys doing with this? Are you ready? Let's make it happen, and I'll see you at the next habit.